What up, perps? Kid Copious back in effect. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here. We're up in America, the center, and common sense. We got a lot to get to, but first, just want to tell you, it's been a struggle of a week for me personally. My brother successfully kicked out all of my mom's caregivers. She had to move in with me, and my brother has immediately started renting out my mom's house. So we got to go to court. I'm telling you, man, be really careful if you ever want to let people move in with you, because squatters' rights, you read about it, you hear about it. Oh, man, it is all true. It is horrible. They're making demands on us to fix stuff that my brother broke. That's the level that people will go to. His lawyer friend has convinced him that he has power of attorney, which he doesn't. It is just so freaking gross, man. You know, my poor mom is stuck in the middle of all this, and we've got to fight it out. But you know what? One thing about Purple State, one thing about my little army, my little family, is we don't know how to quit, man. You know, my wife is a saint, and I'm the Templar who's making sure she gets from London to Jerusalem. Let's kick this thing off. You know, this first story comes from England, but it just kind of shows you sort of how government will sometimes work. This guy, it's hard to pronounce his name, Polesland. He kept going to the environmental, I don't know what it, I'm trying to figure out what it's called, the environmental agency in the UK, saying that this river rotting, R-O-D-I-N-G, was being polluted both by, companies and by people who were just dumping rubbish and stuff along the banks and in the river. There were billions of liters of sewage in the rotting, or the waste criminals who have dumped thousands of tons of rubbish on its banks. So he kept going to the government saying, hey, we got to clean this thing up. You know, we formed a trust to protect this river. And when they wouldn't do anything, he went in there with his team and pulled 200 bags of garbage and organic debris out of a creek called Adler's Brook over a 10-day period. And for doing that, he's now facing fines and possible prison time because he did not have the right permits to do it. Right. Yeah. You know, the government, the United States government, the California government, local government, they really just like to levy fees. They like the power. We see that here in California a lot. We're going to get more into that, about the way they just want power. The fact that they don't give a shit what they do with our taxes. You know, one of the things that I want to say, that's well spoken. One of the things that I really want to impress upon people is, being a resident of California, I see the effects of a one-party system. And that party's the Democrats. So sometimes I do sound partisan, but make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. I am 100% pride. I am 100% women's rights. I don't like a lot of what the Republicans do. You know, when I consider if I have to move states, I look for the states that have legalized weed. All right, plain and simple. I don't necessarily like the Republicans on every issue. But what I see here and what that story in UK reminds me is that the Democrats seem to like a lot of regulations and government control and big government. And I don't think that's what our founding fathers wanted. And as we head into this 4th of July weekend, America's turning 250 years old. Our founding fathers would, I think, be disgusted and sad over what we've turned America into. I'm not a fan of a lot of what Trump's been doing. I'm certainly not a fan of the way Trump goes about things. I'm certainly not a fan of the way religious conservatives treat members of the LGBT community. I don't add all those letters on at the end of the LGBT. I don't do that to disrespect people. I do that because, to me, LGBT is enough. All right? It's enough. We don't need to keep throwing all these categories in. We don't need to keep diluting what the message is. The message is that gays, lesbians, and trans people deserve rights. Okay? We can argue about trans people in sports. That's fine. I think that goes beyond common sense. But things like gay marriage, gay adoption, I think that's just common sense that it needs to be allowed. All right, enough of that. I want to start off by talking about how stupid California really is, okay? There is an article floating around. California seniors hit record 70% financial aid application completion. So in other words, 70% of the high school seniors have filled out their financial aid package. So they're going to go off to college. Isn't that great? Isn't that, wow, the class of 2026 has surpassed a 70% completion rate. And Daisy Gonzalez here, the executive director of the California Student Aid Commission, says, quote, high school seniors, you made history this year. This milestone is a testament to the hard work of our students, families, educators, and community partners across the state. Look, I'm all for financial aid, all right? My daughter used it. My son-in-law uses it. It's fine. But the problem is that they can't do math. Remember a couple weeks ago we were talking about that, how UC professors are saying, hey, we need to return to some sort of standardized testing because we can't just simply, we can't teach college math while trying to explain 8th grade math. They can barely read. People are going to college who are not qualified, and then they are being held to a higher standard, and they eventually drop out, and they still have the debt. Then the debt is either absolved somehow, magically, or through taxpayer dollars, but a lot of the student debt is just lost. It's money that is just pissed down a rabbit hole. All right? What we need is actual high school counselors who give the real options: college, getting a job, getting an internship, going to trade school. There are lots of options to start your path to a successful career, a successful life. All right? I make a lot, okay? And I didn't receive any training. I had to learn everything myself. I learned a lot of what I do by watching YouTube way back in the day when YouTube was barely a thing, right? Back when 700,000 views was a milestone. But it's not about just getting them on financial aid. There's got to be more to the equation than that. When you are just simply graduating people to put them into the college mill, that's not something to celebrate. Celebrate actual accomplishments, not filling out a fucking form. Is that really how low we've dropped our standards here in California? That 70% of people can fill out an application? Wow. Can't read, can't do math, but you can fill out an application with a little help. That's great. All right, so moving on, little World Cup here. World Cup's been pretty good, but a couple of the things that I've really found interesting in recent days. This one, Canada rejected 89% of fan visas from one World Cup nation and only approved 41% of travel visas overall. But no, I did say Canada, right? Because according to the mainstream media, it's the evil United States and the dictator Donald Trump who's not letting people into the country. Guess what? Canada had about the same rate that we did. Why? Because you don't want to let scumbags into your country simply because people are playing soccer. Pure and simple. Don't believe the mainstream media. Double check the figures. Look at it. Scratch the surface. There are reasons why people bought tickets and were not allowed to get visas. I don't know how else to explain that. You know, myself, if I was going to go watch the World Cup in a different country, say Canada or whatever. Well, Canada and Mexico don't really count. Let's just say they're holding it in London, right? I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be allowed into London before I buy tickets. That's just, what do we say? Common sense. So, you know, a lot of the Europeans who came over here for the World Cup, they had their opinion of America. And particularly in Texas, they apologized. One fan went as far as to say that, like, I'm sorry I made fun of your stadium. This is a gorgeous stadium. The people here are welcoming. The people here, the people of Texas, right, that red state, that evil red state, love the fact that World Cup fans are treating every game like it's our Super Bowl. And the Europeans who are visiting, are giving glowing reviews about the size and the amenities at our stadiums. They have fallen in love with Waffle Houses. Yes, Waffle Houses. And ranch dressing. You know that so many people were trying to They were trying to take ranch back home, back to Europe. And, they put it in their baggage, and TSA would say, hey, you can't bring that on the plane. Put it in your checked baggage. When they didn't have checked baggage, because some of them came over here with backpacks, they were chugging the ranch dressing. But you know what America does? Do you know what America does? All right? Kraft realized there was a problem. So you know what Kraft did? Kraft came up with a small bottle that is smaller than the 3.4 ounce rule for carry-on bags, right? So they made a TSA compliant ranch kit, and it comes with a small quart, a bag that's clear, so they can see that it's ranch dressing, and enough ranch packets. You know those sealed packets like you get ketchup from a restaurant? Sealed packets. And then that way they can take it through TSA. They even took it a step further, and they got a ranch bottle-inspired lunch tag for fans who want to show their allegiance on the go. That's America, man. That is so patriotic. The Europeans wanted to take ranch home. So one of our companies, Kraft, made it all... they made a TSA compliant kit so people could take ranch home. They rolled out the TSA rolled out separate posts on the subject for the tournament's first week alone. Some heroes wear capes, others bring ranch. Another post read, "One world, one ranch." They started posting pictures of the confiscated bottles. And this article says, in perhaps the most unhinged government advisory in recent memory, they warned fans to stop chugging ranch outside the security line. But Kraft stepped in. That's America for you, baby. Ranch dressing. Kraft wrote on Instagram, some visitors leave with souvenirs. Others leave with America's favorite dressing. Introducing Kraft TSA compliant ranch. A travel-friendly way to bring a taste of America home. Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to California. A shocking image. This is the headline. A shocking image shows the insane reality of LA's mayoral election. Okay? The image was people still counting ballots. This was on June 21st, which was a week ago, right? Do you know that yesterday, Saturday, they officially certified the election? I don't even remember when the fuck we voted. It's been that long. And the problem is that, let's not get off on tangents and conspiracy tangents here. But let's just keep in mind that when you have a vote that takes a month to do, it really worries people. And when stories come out about people getting homeless people to register to vote and then vote using sometimes dubious names, dubious addresses. I mean, for example, one Venice shelter reportedly had 185 Ramen voters registered there, but they also received $600,000 in taxpayer funding connected to ramen. Now, I know that some of these videos, homeless people are just getting paid to say that they voted for Bass, and I understand that. We don't have evidence of any real fraud. And one of the problems with the mail-in ballots is that it's hard to prove fraud. That's why I never had a problem with absentee ballots. Absentee ballots, they can be handled pretty well. But what we've seen is that these people, these government officials, are legally rigging elections and purposely going out of the way. They say it's for voter access, but when I was younger, we went and we voted. There was never a problem with voter access. Right now we have, we have this whole thing about trying to show ID at voting. Look up the speech that Byron Daniels from Florida gave. He starts it by saying, Senate sucks. Because they're trying to delay the vote on the Safe Voting Act. When you set up a system that is blatantly, obviously easy to fraud, you can't get upset when people cry fraud. I mean, look, if the people of Los Angeles want Bass or they want to go full lefty and vote for ramen, that's fine. But when the vote is so slow, it just invites complaints because some of us have a really hard time believing that the people of Los Angeles really want to stay the course with Bass, or that people want to go full lefty with Rahman. I understand Pratt was not a great candidate. I get that. I have no problem with that. But at the same time, when you make it suspicious, don't be surprised when people get suspicious. So right now, the Democrats in California want to increase the rainy day fund from 10% to 20%. The problem I have by that is that it sort of acts like a general fund where they could just dip into it. They could just say, oh, well, it's an emergency. But look what Speaker of Assembly Rob Rivas said. Californians live by a simple bipartisan truth. Set money aside when times are good so you're ready when they're not. Well, Save for California's Future Act? We are not in good times right now. What are we trying to save? Why do they want to do this? Like I said, they slip it into the rainy day fund, and then it could go wherever it wants. We earmark money. We're going to get into that a little bit more, so stick with me here. But that's what they want to do. They want to increase the amount saved in the rainy day fund during years where taxes generated by capital gains and other asset-related income reach especially high levels. But we're broke. We're broke. And being broke, we are now announcing, California leaders announced deal on $11 billion affordable housing bond measure. They want to sell $11 billion in bonds. And bonds are a good way to get things done. You sell the bonds to investors. The investors get a guaranteed return on their money. The problem is we're broke. So how do we pay back those loans? You're just tacking on $11 billion to subsidize low-income families. The problem is it incentivizes low-income families to get their ass to California where they can get subsidies. Everybody needs help. I do believe that. But when one state or one city or one whatever over-incentivizes it, it creates a problem. Okay? If you don't have a job and you can't afford to live in California, then you go somewhere else. That's what I'm going to do when I retire. I've been reading articles trying to tell me, oh, you're not going to save all that money. Hooey. All right? Hooey. Because every year it gets more expensive in California. A little bit more on that coming up in just a second here. California sues Trump administration for sending clean air waivers to Congress. See, before California was passing clean air requirements that forced auto manufacturers and other people to comply with California's regulations. And for car manufacturers, they sell enough cars here, but not everything scales that way. So in other words, California is passing laws that affect other states. That's kind of what it boils down to. Interstate Commerce Clause in the Constitution of America. But after all of these years of having to pay for expensive catalytic converters, pay for special gas, pay for all of these gas taxes and all of that, right? We consistently still experience the worst air quality. So everything we've been doing since the 70s is not working, all right? Because a lot of our pollution is nature-driven. Because a lot of the pollution that we see is wind whipping across deserts, kicking up particles. It's not all cars. They like to blame the cars, but even when they blame the cars, they blame the gasoline in the cars. Tires contribute to it. EVs are heavier and cut through tires a lot fast. All that tire dust coming off the road. And when we talk about the gas taxes and they lie to us because we're about to hit another one where they say road safety and you need to let us increase gas taxes for road safety. Do you know right now we are the third worst state for roads? In Rhode Island, 36% of their roads are bad. In Massachusetts, 29% of their roads are bad. In California, 28% of their roads are bad. We brag about a fourth largest economy, right? So, first of all, if we have the fourth largest economy in the world, of course we're going to be contributing to pollution. No duh. All the industry we have here. We have so much manufacturing industry, refineries, chemical plants, things like that. We are polluting the air. We could do better. But the focus is being put on gasoline cars. And that's just simply not true. And where have all the gas taxes? With the highest gas taxes in the United States, why do we rank third last in roads? Why? Where's all that money gone? You know, that's where it goes. That's what we were talking about with the rainy day fund. They find ways to get gas tax money for their pet projects. They frame it in such a way that it's being used for the environment. I was making air quotes right there. And guess what? Our prices for gas are about to go up because they did that road tax, the Road Safety Act. They convinced everybody, oh, no, it's not repealing the gas tax. We need to strengthen this tax. We need to save our roads. We need to save our roads. So guess what? Our tax is going up another 2.5 cents. So California's gas tax is now going to hit 63 cents per gallon. With all of the other fees tacked on, we're going to be paying $1.20 per gallon in California. In California, if you buy gas at $5.51 per gallon, only $4.31 of that is actually for fuel. So $1.20 per gallon is going to California. And what do we get for it? Bad roads? Polluted skies? Nothing's changed. Because the Democrats that are in power, one-party rule here in California, they don't care about cleaning up the environment. What they care about is getting gobs and gobs of money that they can use to stay in power. What do I say? How else is it? How is it that we pay all of that money and our skies are no cleaner and our roads are no better? Here's another great one. Under the guise of Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, California is about to institute a fee of $98.74 per planted acre, while homeowners with private wells will pay $62.58. Where are they doing this? Napa Valley. Right, California, wine. So they're directly attacking the farmers of California. One of the biggest sources, you talk about the fourth largest economy, a lot of it comes from agriculture. Guess what? Grapes and wine are agriculture. Right now, they did a 2025 Cal Poly study. Now, this was commissioned by the Napa County Farm Bureau. So, okay, maybe we can argue with it, but it sounds pretty factual. Regulatory compliance already costs a large Napa vineyard about $1.7 million a year, $1,700 per acre, roughly 12.5% of their total production cost. So when you're trying to grow grapes or make wine up in Napa Valley, or really on any farm, because this applies to all farms up there, Central Valley, Northern California, 12% of your operating budget is going to fees and taxes and regulatory nonsense. Now, some of it, I agree, is important, but the fees they're charging are detrimental. Look into what's going on up in Napa right now. Grape growers are going out of business. Their land is being valued as worthless because it's too expensive to grow there. You have these little independent winemakers up there that are just being squeezed out. And meanwhile, what are we doing to capture all the water? We know in California the one thing we're short of, okay? Unfortunately, nowadays is also electricity. But we have always been short of water. And we're not doing anything to do anything about it. They're trying to divert a river. Well, that river needs to be filled. Why are we not doing more to capture the snowpack? Why is it that every time we get snow on the mountains, it melts, it goes into the wash, and it goes out to sea? Because that's what happens. Why is it that when the Palisades caught on fire, the reservoir was empty? Look up Petra, Petra. It was a town, I believe it was in, it's either Syria, Iraq, or Jordan. I can't remember right now, but it's over there. And they were the hub of trade in that area. They got something like a half an inch of rain every year. And they made sure they collected every fucking drop in underground cisterns. So when travelers were coming through with trade, they would stop at Petra for water. This is a place that got no rain. And they were known as an oasis because they captured water. Not in the 19th century, not in the 18th century, not way back in time. Way back when we measured years in 3 digits. We could do better. California could be doing a hell of a lot better. The 4th largest economy should not be on the verge of dying of thirst. We should not be paying the most for electricity out of all the U.S. states. We should not be paying more than almost every state for our goods, our services, our gasoline. We do not have a revenue problem in California. We have a spending problem in California. We have people whose priorities do not align with the grunts, the grinders, the people like you and me, all right, who aren't wealthy, all right? That's our biggest problem here. They are wasting our money and then demanding more. They are. They want more gas taxes, but what have we seen from it? Nothing. They want more regulations. They want more building regulations. And then they say, oh, now we need to, we need to charge you more. They force the utilities to go green, and that added to our energy costs. They're mismanaging all of our water, which leads to that. But they've got money to talk about reparations and bike lanes, and Karen Bass can fly off to Ghana, and we're going to give billions to homeless services and free crack pipes and billions of dollars in illegal health care or health care for illegal aliens. But try to retain some water, no soup for you. But people are getting pissed off. Here in LA, they did this thing called like a weighted ballot where they sent out ballots to homeowners in Los Angeles. About 600,000 of them, I believe, to add to their assessment for streetlights. In other words, as part of your property taxes, there was going to be a certain assessment to fix traffic, to fix streetlights. It failed by 79.29% to 18.74%. So basically 80-20 said no way. Yeah, copper thieves costing millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Right now in Los Angeles, they are spending $20 million a year repairing damage caused by copper wire thefts. Yeah. Repair times are up to about a year now. But what do? They're starting to put in more hardened streetlights to make it harder for copper thieves. But all you have to do, when we had a really bad gang and gun problem in Los Angeles, we started adding enhancements. So if you got convicted of armed robbery, it would also be armed robbery with a gun. You used a gun, that's an additional something like 5 or 10 years, right? There are ways to stamp this out. But are they concerned with that? No, they're not concerned with that. They're not passing laws. They're not tightening laws. They're not going to the wall for us. I see it in my business, fire alarms. They're stealing anything that could be made of copper. It's destruction. I mean, the amount of money that my clients have had to spend fortifying and replacing stuff that was stolen is in the millions and millions of dollars. And that's just a small sampling. So we talk about the one-party rule of the Democrats, the liberals, the lefties. This is a great article that really explains how they operate. Would-be Pelosi successor Scott Wiener humiliated as he's chased from San Francisco Trans March. Yeah, Scott Wiener, okay? He's going to take over for Nancy Pelosi. He's just a Pelosi clone, really. But he went to a pride event, and he was chased off by a mob because they don't like his stance. He's Jewish, and he didn't go far enough. See, he said, for those of you who saw the debate clip from last week, I want to clarify that I do believe Israel has committed genocide in Gaza, Wiener said at the time. To me, the Israeli government has tried to destroy Gaza and push Palestinians out, and that qualifies as genocide. But, during the debate, he didn't quite say that, and they were mad. One person at this trans rally shouted out at Wiener, "You stopped being queer the moment you started supporting Israel." See, because that's what these people do. They want these big crowds. So what they do when they're doing their trans march is they reach out to other people, the pro-Palestinians, the the Sierra Clubs, the environmentalists. They get all of these people together under one umbrella to yell and scream at people. I don't like Scott Wiener at all. I think Scott Wiener is full of stupid, stupid ideas. All right? I think he's a stupid person. But I would never say that he stopped being gay because he supports Israel. Do they also tell people that you stop being gay if you vote Republican? See, that's fucking crazy. And that's one of the strengths here of Purple State Party. You're allowed to have your beliefs. Let's talk about them. Let's figure it out. Let's come to a consensus by using common sense. So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry Scott Wiener went through that. I don't like the guy, but I'm sorry he went through that. Nobody should be chased off when they're just trying to support the trans community. And they should not be chased off by pro-Palestinians because let's keep in mind, the people of Gaza are not going to join you in the trans march. Thanks for listening. I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party, and so are you. Love one another. Keep on grinding. A kid came by my house the other day looking to earn money. I paid him $40 to take out the trash. You know why? Because I love you grinders. I love the people who work hard, who have dirt under their fingernails. Because this is America, and America was built by people with dirt under their fingers. This 4th of July, man, get a DJ at your party. Have them crank it up loud and dance it out. Happy birthday, America. Peace, y'all.